What's up, my shredders and bedwetters? Nick from Gorley Records here, and we got another plugin to review for you today. This is Electrum by United Plugins, and it shreds. So Electrum is a brand new plugin. It was just released this summer, and it's currently in beta. And what Electrum is it allows you to build basically a pedal board and configure your amp and cabinet settings. And once you've built it out and have it complete, you basically have what is the equivalent of a really sussed out guitar pedal setup and amp simulation setup. So it's super dope what you can build with this thing. And most importantly, it sounds really freaking good. So we're going to run through my 5-point review for this, which is based on a 5 black key system, which is derived from all the sharps of a keyboard. And so the categories are affordability, competitiveness in the marketplace, design, functionality, and grooviness. And each of those categories can earn a 0, half, or a full black key, so you can earn a max of 5 black keys. Now this will be a longer review, but because there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of cool features. It is a more expensive plugin, and we'll get to that, but I just wanted to make sure we unpack everything here so you see everything that you're getting with this plugin. I'm also doing a giveaway for this plugin, but those details come at the end of the video, so stick around. Also consider subscribing. I think that music education should be free, and part of my mission for doing that, all I'm really asking you to do is just press a little tiny red button on your screen, and that's it. So that'd be awesome. Now, let's get into this. So the first category we are going to talk about before we get into this is something I think is actually really important and kind of urgent to talk about, and that's affordability. I usually don't start these reviews with the price, but this is something really unique about what Electrum is doing and United Plugins, and I think I should address this. So when this plugin is fully released at the beginning of September, it's going to be $181 US. However, until then, United Plugins is offering an extremely generous intro offer to this, where it's 74% off until then, so you can get this plugin for $47. And I'm not gonna lie to you, $47 for what we're about to unpack here is actually a really freaking good deal, and I actually really suggest you go and buy it at this introductory price, because once it jumps up to $181, obviously it's a lot more expensive. It's still worth it at that price, but you might as well scoop that introductory offer while it's there. If you're watching this after the introductory offer, do know that United Plugins does run sales on their plugins every now and then, so you could always wait for a sale if the full price is a little too much for you. But to be real, Electrum outputs some really great guitar sounds. It has really good tone, it has a really awesome amp simulator, some like really powerful effects racks. It really does a lot. And it's really versatile, so no matter what genre you play in, you can really get a lot out of this thing. And if you tried to make an actual physical version of this with trying to get all these pedals and these amps and stuff, you would have a really freaking expensive setup. And so given the fact that they have a really awesome, generous introductory offer during this beta, and just how many features there are in this plugin, you know, I do think that for affordability, that Electrum does get a full black key. So now let's move on to our next category, which is design. So let's just talk about this sleek and sexy plugin for a second, shall we? So United Plugins has modeled Electrum to look like a 3D pedal board. I mean, just look at this routing detail, all that wiring. Ooh, that is just so sexy. Sarcasm aside, this is actually a really slick interface. What I like about it is that all possible knobs and faders are visible for you to see. Nothing is tucked away behind a bunch of menus and stuff. You know, on some of the plugins, we do have this little drop down here where you can change the mode and stuff like that, but otherwise, like, all knobs are right there in your face. You can kind of see them all, and there's not a lot of wasted space here, which I like. You'll find out in these reviews, I really hate wasted space on plugins. And so as we're just looking at these components, it's really easy to tell what's activated and what's not. Everything grays out really nicely if it's not on, so it's out of your way, it's not distracting. Everything is also really nicely color-coded, which is nice, and that all these colors correspond up here to the effects chain, where you can see the colors easily, so you can also tell easily what's on and off. And in this effects chain, you can also move these around. So if you want to put things before another thing, you can do that, which is pretty fun. So you can put, you know, your doublers and stuff after your amps and cabinets if you want to, as opposed to a traditional pedal board, which would, you know, you'd have all your pedals before the amp. Now, if you think all these wires and amps are too cluttered or busy, Electrum does also offer a 2D mode. So you just click this button up here, and this brings you to more what you'd see in more like a modern VST interface. Now, I do like the cleanliness of this mode, but to be honest, you do lose a lot of the color contrast you get in the 3D mode. In the 3D mode, everything is clearly, you know, the backgrounds are colored, so it's really easy to see what's what. But in the 2D mode, the only colors are in the fade amounts, the knob amounts, and the title up here. So everything kind of blends in, so it doesn't really, stand out as much compared to the gray ones. Like this gray color is kind of light, so it's not really as easy to see what's enabled or disabled just when you're trying to look at it really quickly. But this is just kind of a little nitpicky detail. Maybe they'll update this once it's actually officially launched or just on future updates. Either way, I really enjoy the fact that in whichever view you're in, there isn't a lot of wasted space. Everything's just available to you to use. You don't have to go digging around and to adding all these effects and stuff. You just quickly enable them, adjust your knobs, and you're ready and rocking. And that honestly makes it really quick and easy to build a patch and keep running through everything. So because of this, Electrum definitely is getting one full black key for design. All right, so now it's time to strap up because we are going to jump into the next category, which is functionality. Okay, so for this, we're just going to kind of go over all the features. This will be a longer section, but that's because I want you to kind of see and hear everything so you know what you're getting into. So let's go over kind of some of the external stuff. So up here, you'll see an A and B button, and so this lets you flip between two presets, so you can have two presets loaded up. Here's kind of your template selector. You can load up different templates and cycle through them, just kind of all standard, plugin stuff. On the right side here, there is a input and output as well as this bassman knob. So the bassman, I'll show you, just kind of increases some low end. So I'm just going to kind of play my A string, and I'm just going to turn this up so you can hear what it does. So it just turns your guitar, kind of gives it some bass sound so you can kind of play a quick bass lick without having to plug in and set up a bass. So if you just really quickly need to kind of throw a bass line down, this is a great way to do that. There's also a limiter on here, and there's also this analyze input level button, and this will kind of, you click this, then you play really hard, and it analyzes your input, and will kind of adjust your settings to optimize your playing style. I'll actually show you how it works. So here you can tell we have a kind of a loud, noisy guitar. So if we want to analyze our input level, we can check this box and start playing really hard, and you'll hear it really quickly adjust to correct the guitar. So you can hear a lot of noise went away, so we can uncheck this. And now our guitar is optimized. And so that's a really cool feature and a really quick way to just kind of get all your levels set. And then down here, we have this really interesting feature called EQ matching, where you can analyze the target sound and it will create a patch that sounds like what you're playing. And so for this, we're going to try to get this to EQ match a loop from Splice we have downloaded. So here's what our patch sounds like right now. Really just easy, clean, nothing crazy going on patch. So we're going to turn on EQ matching. So here's the loop that we want to mimic. So that's the sound we're going for. So we'll have it analyze target sound, and we'll play the loop. And then we turn that off. And then we analyze our sound, and this is where I play, and we just try to play a similar riff. Kind of rough, but you get the idea. So then we turn that off, and now the patch should sound like what we heard on that loop. Pretty close. It kind of did a close job, and there's a depth knob. You can kind of control the mix here between your set patch and the sound it analyzed, but not bad for something that's in beta. I haven't really ever used this much. I don't really care to use it that much. I just prefer making my own patches, but it's just kind of an interesting feature they've added in there. And then down at the bottom here is just a tuner to use, just for real quick tuning. So fun feature. So now let's dive into each of these components. So one thing that's cool about all these components, like I said, all the knobs and everything are visible for you to see. But there's also these menus here you can click on every single one for presets for each individual component. So you can create presets for every single component. which is pretty nifty. And so first, we're going to start with the amp section because everything is kind of built around the amps and the cabinets. So we're going to start with these, and then we'll get into all the effects. So the amp is kind of structured into 5 modes. So you have blue, which is just the cleanest mode, and then yellow, which gets, a little more distorted. Red, and the more farther right you go, the more distorted it gets. Then on the left side here, you kind of have just some basic EQing for the amp, a gain knob to turn down the gain up and down really easily. All right, and to kind of explain the rest of these knobs, I'm actually going to just play a guitar loop in there just so we can mess with the knobs easier. Okay, so balance will add darkness or brightness to the mix. Power amp controls the distortion within the amp. Then on the right side here, you kind of have some more knobs just to add some additional sound design. These are all really subtle. They just add really kind of light touches to it just so you can kind of really dial in your own sound. But none of these really do anything too extreme. Emphasis, frequency, and emphasis. These just take a certain frequency that you choose with the frequency knob and kind of adds or decreases how much that's emphasized. So here's an example. So just some interesting knobs there. Compression is just like a really, really basic compressor. And this works in, you still have this other compressor component. So this gives you kind of more compression control. But this can just be used in addition to this one. And however you throw it into the chain, will just, add more compression. Sag adds some really subtle analog tube dynamics. Luster kind of adds some sort of high-end sparkles, and corrosion adds sort of like some like rust and kind of dust sound. So I'm just going to play the sample and just kind of adjust those for you. So again, these are all really, really subtle details. They're just to kind of enhance the sound just a little bit more but they don't let you kind of break the sound and make some stupid sound. Because remember, you're going to be adjusting these on top of having all these other components activated, so these little touches can actually make a big difference once you're fully in a patch. But out of the gate, you can see we even have just like tons of capabilities just with this amp section in and of itself. And in case that isn't enough for you, there's also this super rad cabinet section. So within the cabinet, you have this just initial output knob to change the output. You also have a stereo knob if you want to kind of get some more stereo widening in there. So here's a speaker drop down. So there's 16 different speakers to choose from, which is a great selection. And then within each one of those, there's characters. You can change the character as well, which gives you a combination. I think there's like 300 some different combinations just between these two menus that you can control. And then there's an ambience knob as well. And then on the right here, you have tilt, which is kind of similar to balance, where it kind of makes it lighter or like brighter or darker. The detail adds some additional resonances, which kind of varies based on which like speaker and character combination you have. And depth will control the amount of ambience that's mixed in. So I'm just going to play the loop and kind of play with these different knobs. You can kind of get a feel for the different sounds. So obviously a lot you can do here, a lot of different combinations. This is just really fun. I'll let you explore it further if you get the plugin, but that's just kind of a brief overview of the amp and cabinet sections. Okay, now that's out of the way and we got the foundations down. I just selected some presets for the amp and the cabinet. Now let's go through all of the other components here. So the first thing we have is the noise gate, and the noise gate I'm actually pretty impressed with actually as a whole. Obviously we have a ton of features here, just some basic, attack release, minimum and max, which kind of gives the ceiling and the floor for the noise gate, and like the look ahead, how far it scans ahead, all those, and hold, and just basic noise gate settings. Overall, I've been really amazed with it. I mean, even when I load up really distorted patches, I'm surprised how much noise I can cut out. So it only kicks in when I play clean. So let me just show an example. So let me load up like a high gain. So usually on a high gain preset, you get a lot of noise and stuff like that, but this is actually surprisingly, you can't really hear very much noise going on right now. But when I start playing, look how much distortion is on here. And then boom, it's gone. Really nice, super clean, but it still gets the subtle details. So if I'm like lightly tapping the strings, it gets that, and then as soon as I mute the string, boom, no noise. The noise gate I've been impressed with actually. So moving on now, we have the compressor, and the compressor that gets it to a bare minimum, just a dry wet with an attack and release. And what's cool is there's actually a couple different models of compressors. So you click this, you have 3 separate models, and then you can also combine any combination of those models or all of the models. So you got some various compression models there. Not much to report here. It's just a good compression pedal that works, and obviously you can arrange it wherever you want in the chain by dragging up here and placing that compressor anywhere you want. Next up we have the doubler. I'm a big fan of doublers and use this component quite a bit. It just kind of thickens up the guitar a lot. I like to use this when a guitar is being played, but there's not many other instruments around it, just to kind of make the track feel fuller. And it's kept pretty simple with a dry wet knob, which is basically what this depth is. It's just kind of how much the doubler applies. And then it also has this character knob, which applies unique effects depending on which algorithm is selected. And the algorithm is selected from this drop-down menu. You have tape, spectral, multi, ER, or chorusy. And then the character knob, it kind of just adjusts dynamics within that. In the manual, United Plugin says it would be hard to define what the character knob does since it changes based on the algorithm selected. But I mean, that's fine. It's all about what it sounds like to your ears. So like, don't worry about what it's doing to the dynamics and getting a really technical explanation. Just know that it sounds good. So I'm going to take you through a couple of these now. So this is no doubler. So you just hear it's got some good widening to it. So that was tape. Let's go to like a multi. Turn the character up. Let me play it on my loop actually. So yeah, fun pedal. I like the character knob. Music doesn't always need to be explained as long as it sounds good. So next here we have the modulation. This is actually a really cool section and combines a bunch of what would normally be separate pedals into one, which actually cleans up the interface a lot. So on the left here, we just have your basic modulation settings. Rate, which sets the speed. Feedback, which is how much of the process signal feeds back into the modulation. Vintage, which adds some cool vintage saturation. And then you have the depth knob, which will change modulation based on which effect is enabled. So for example, if you have the chorus enabled, it changes the delay length of the chorus, but for tremolo, it will change the LFO shape. So it does different things based on which knob it is, but it kind of just puts it all in one spot. I know deep down the sound engineer inside of you probably wishes that you could edit each of these parameters specifically, but know that this would require a much bulkier interface in order to edit all those parameters separately instead of just them all being within one depth knob or even using the same rate and feedback. And at the end of the day, just kind of use your ears and see what you like. And you don't always need to get down to the final nitty gritty of every single little detail. Music can sound good without you focusing 10 hours and setting the exact rates and feedbacks for every single one of these effects. Just Keep it simple, stupid. And that's one thing I like about this plugin, is it actually doesn't get into the weeds in any of this thing. It kind of keeps everything basic and sort of does a lot of the brunt work for you, so you can just focus on kind of quickly fine-tuning it. And then on the right here, you have the mixer for each of the effects, so you just slide up and down how much you want. I'm just gonna play that loop again and just kind of play with these settings. You can kind of get a feel for what it does. All right, so moving on, you have the auto wah, which is just kind of an automated wah-wah effect. Some pretty basic knobs here. Depth just controls the amount. Time is just how fast it's going. Resonance, how much it's crying, basically. What's one thing cool here is the focus knob, which controls the dynamic range. So you can easily adjust how it responds to the input signal. So again, let me just play the loop. But yeah, it's just a cool little feature, get a little funkiness to your track. So here on the next row, we have the distortion pedal. And this is actually much more than a simple distortion pedal. You'll see we have 3 modes to choose from. Boost lowers the bass content and just kind of gives the amp an extra kick. Scream gives you medium distortion, and distortion gives you maximum distortion. So here's without anything. This is boost. Scream. And distortion. And then obviously within these, we got really simple adjustments of gain, output, tone, bass. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. Luster, again, will add some kind of high-end sparkle. Pre-emphasis adds a little bit of filtering. And corrosion just adds some more, a little bit of slight detail of grit and dirt. So let's just play our loop and mess around with these settings. So you can really get a lot of miles out of that pedal. So next we have the EQ section. And so here you have 7 bands of frequencies to adjust with. You have a high pass, a low pass. You have a depth knob, which actually functions as a dry-wet mixer, which is not super common on a lot of EQing plugins. And I'll show you why that's cool in a sec. Then you also have this fader here called X. And so what X does is it adjusts what United Plugins calls the magic frequency, which can actually be set controlling this XF knob. And so let's just play our loop again, and I'll play with this so you can kind of hear what it does. It's interesting. But anyway, this X knob is it's pretty interesting. It just adds a little flavor to whatever frequency you choose. And let me keep playing the loop again for a sec, because I want to show you something else. So let's say we want to boost the lows, maybe boost the highs, and cut our mids. But let's say maybe that's too extreme. So we just knew we wanted to extremely dip the mids and extremely up the highs. What we can now do is roll back this depth knob and use it as a dry wet. And it sort of gives us a more fine tune. So there's without it entirely. And there's with it all the way on. So that's what's kind of cool about the depth knob. Usually you don't see a dry wet kind of mixer on EQs plugins, but it actually can give you some interesting use out of it. All right, so next up we have the delay. Really isn't too much crazy going on here. It's just kind of pretty basic delay features, but you do get quite a bit of them. You got 2 separate delays you can have, and you can disable ones if you don't want them. You can add ping pong. You can sync the delay to your project tempo. I would say probably the 2 most unique things about the delay is you have a modulation knob, which adjusts some of like additional flutters in the delay. And you also have a vintage knob to get kind of some analog saturation sound. But otherwise, it's a pretty standard delay plugin. So let's just play our loop again. All right, and the final stop we have for the components here, I know it's been a lot, but there's a lot to show. We have the reverb component. This reverb component is actually pretty stupid powerful. It's kind of nice. So to begin with, you have this menu here that is filled with 18 different reverb algorithms out of the gate. And on top of that, we have a whole slurry of knobs. So now, while there are a lot of knobs, many of them are pretty self-explanatory of what they do. And because a lot of these you see on other reverb plugins, they usually don't see all of them on every single reverb plugin. So it's nice you kind of have full control here. One really cool thing is that there are ducking knobs. And so with this, when the input signal of the guitar increases, the reverb will actually duck and disappear. And then as the input signal kind of fades away, the reverb will fill back in. This can actually help prevent a lot of muddiness from entering your mix. And it's something I think more reverbs should have. So to show you how ducking works, I've selected I've selected a hall and just turned the dry wet all the way to full. So it's just like a really big reverb. And the ducking time is just kind of how fast until it kicks in. So I'm gonna have it pretty fast. So just kind of, it's sort of this sound right away. I'll just play the sound. So the chords come in, and as the chords fade away, some of that hall sound comes back. But otherwise, the rest of the reverb is pretty self-explanatory, but it's just nice because there is a lot of options, so you can really dial in your reverbs here. You can save a whole slurry of presets for these and start building your own reverbs. Really cool component. So at this point, if you weren't completely blown away with the sound design opportunities here, then I don't know what to tell you. There's just no impressing you. You might as well just not even bother. But seriously, it's pretty great. There is no doubt that for functionality, Electrum gets one full black key because holy smokes, is there a lot going on here. So at this point, you're probably tired of hearing all these details and wondering, all right, Nick, we get it. Does the thing sound good? And for that, we're gonna move on to our next category, grooviness. For this, I've just pulled up some past project examples from just previous streams recently that I've used this plugin, and just gonna kind of jam over some of the tracks I've made. So let's see what it can do. Here's just some presets. So obviously this plugin grooves, whether you're looking for something that's sort of rock and roll, or whether you're looking for something metal. Or maybe you're just looking for something melancholic. Electrum is going to have you covered in sound. It is so dope. For grooviness, there's no doubt it gets one full black key. Stack them up, baby! So now we have one final category to go over, and that is competitiveness. So what this category is it puts Electrum up to other products in the market to see how it stands up to the competition and see if it totally has a corner on the market all to itself, or whether there's other plugins out there that are comparable that can actually compete with Electrum. And the first thing that comes to mind for this is Native Instruments Guitar Rig. So this is the website for Guitar Rig. As you can see, it's $199. Contrast that to Electrum, which at its full price is $181. Electrum is a little bit cheaper. However, Guitar Rig does a very similar thing to Electrum, where it basically is an amp simulator and effects simulator, and it has a whole interface with all kinds of effects and stuff. Now, here just to show you the interface, this is Guitar Rig 6. Now, this is the free version of Guitar Rig 6. It's part of a whole Native Instruments pack of free stuff, so it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it gives you the idea. So basically, you have all these effects here on the left. You can choose between your components over here, which is quite a bit, even just the free version. And you can drag them over here and set them all up. Now, from a sound design standpoint, Guitar Rig 6 has a lot more to offer when it comes to actually sound design. And there's a whole lot of reasons for this. So like here, for example, just looking at their website, you'll see that there's a bunch of options here. This is delay and echo plugins. You know, there's 6 different options for delays and echoes. Let's see, you have, you know, under filters, there's a whole bunch of different types of filters. There's more modulation effects. One of the really cool things is they have LFOs, so you can take an LFO and you can assign this LFO parameter to anything you want, and then it'll control that parameter automatically. So there's a lot you can do with sound design in this thing that isn't even an option in Electrum. However, this interface of editing everything is a lot clunkier. You have this whole menu on the side to kind of navigate through everything. Same with your presets. You have all these different presets. Once you load them up, you kind of drag them, drop them around. But if you get like a big plugin that has a lot of different effects, it can be a lot to scroll through. So you have to like kind of scroll through everything to get to all your different settings. It can just be a little clunkier. So when you're dealing with on the fly, it's way easier to deal with Electrum's interface, because on the fly, this is way easier to see what's enabled, what's going on, turn things on and off. It's just a lot more of a breath of fresh air. Whereas Guitar Rig 6 is more if you're trying to get into like really, really in-depth, detailed, like experimental sound design, then maybe you'll want to find yourself in Guitar Rig 6. It is more expensive. It obviously cannot compete with United Plugin's introductory offer on Electrum, which is really cheap. But this is something else out there that exists. And depending on if you're just looking for more of a traditional setup with like a really quick interface to edit everything, or whether you're looking for more something that's more in the future, and you know, if you're doing more like electronic music stuff, maybe you want to be in the more of the world of guitar rig. I'm probably gonna buy the full version of guitar rig in the future, but I'm still gonna use the heck out of Electrum because I just love being able to get in here and quickly adjust parameters and presets quickly. It's just so much. I do a lot of live streaming and live performing stuff where I just need to quickly pull up a patch and get something set up, and I don't have the time to sit there in Guitar Rig's interface and like quickly figure out, okay, what's going on? Oh, okay, I need to add like an echo. Let me come over here to this component's echo. Okay, let me drag my echo over here. It's so much nicer to be like, hey, I need a delay. Let me turn the delay on, and okay, I'll pick this preset I know it's good, and boom, I'm in there and I'm working and it's on and I don't have to worry about it. So that quickness and ease of use goes a long fucking way when you're doing something on the fly or live performance. It makes a huge difference. And so because of that, Electrum gets a half key for competitiveness because it does absolutely compete with the competition, but it doesn't completely corner the marketplace and is not like just an amazing standout product because there are other variations that do exist. Whew, oh boy, that was quite the doozer. And I'm getting sweaty. You can see I'm sweaty because it's 100 degrees outside today. And I have the AC off when I'm making this video, and this was a long review, so I am hot. So I am looking forward to turning that AC back on. But we ran through all 5 categories, and Electrum came out on the other side with 4.5 out of 5 black keys, which is pretty good. I set the structure up so not every plugin just easily qualified for five black keys. I wanted it to be hard to attain 5 black keys. 4.5 is awesome. And I'm also doing a giveaway of Electrum. So to enter, make sure to subscribe to this channel and also head over to my Instagram in the link below and go follow the Instagram and leave a comment on the giveaway post about Electrum. And on August 25th, I will announce the winner, and this still gives you plenty of time to buy the plugin at the introductory price if you don't win, although honestly, you should probably just go and buy it because it's awesome. And if you're watching this video after August 25th and you missed the giveaway, well, definitely make sure to subscribe and follow on the Instagram because I do quite a few giveaways and I want to keep doing more. So if you want to keep in the loop of when giveaways are happening, make sure you're following. I've put a link down in the description below to Electrum, as well as the product manual if you want to learn more about it. And please don't forget to like this video so other people can find out about this awesome plugin. And remember to hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you later, rock stars. Peace. Oh gosh, that's lame.